Welcome to the Functional Health Coaching Show, where we are here to support and answer your questions so that you can help people on a deeper level get real results and grow your health coaching business. Do you have questions you want to ask live on the show? You can call in every Friday at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 1-347-637-1378. Are you looking to increase your credibility and grow your health coaching business using functional lab testing and data-driven protocols so that you can confidently solve health issues? Well, we have the course for you. Go to fdn.today/show to learn more and sign up today. Okay, let's join today's episode.
Well, happy Friday, guys. It's August 14th, 2020, and you're listening to the Functional Health Coaching Show. Sponsored by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And we thank you for spending part of your Friday with us, your Friday afternoon. This is a tradition, a long-standing FDN tradition, to come to you guys on Friday afternoon and help support you, wherever you find yourself in your journey. If you're looking at taking this course, if you are a trainee, if you are you certified out there working with people, this show is really for everyone. And it's a live show. So we invite your calls. Number to do that is 347-637-1378. Again, 347-637-1378. Hit one on your keypad. When you come on, I'll know that you're there. You want to make a comment or ask a question, I'll call it your area code, rather, and get your name, and you can ask a question or two. And Ryan and I are here to help you today. So I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Mollet, FDN mentor, clinical advisor, practitioner, and my buddy Ryan Monahan's along with me here today as well. So we're ready to answer some questions for you. So we've got some written in pertaining to what we do as FDN practitioners, and then again, we love live listeners and callers. We have those most weeks, so you guys don't be shy this week, and we're going to jump on and ask a question. Bring a case forward. We'll do what we can on cases. Sometimes the specifics, we can't always cover everything in that amount of time, but any kind of questions you have, it's case management, if it's marketing or business or supplementation, lab testing, results, we should be able to help out. So don't be shy today. All right. Well, I want to say hi to Ryan here. We're just talking beforehand about our weeks, how things are going, so I want to check in and see how he's doing. Ryan, how are you this week, man?
I'm doing great. It's been a great week. Just before we hopped on, I was telling you how I think I got gluten eating out at a restaurant last night. So I'm feeling a little foggy, but thought it could be useful or potentially even helpful to bring that up for anyone who's experienced a similar situation, because there are things you can do to mitigate that and to at least kind of minimize the symptoms after the fact. But took some binders this morning, took some vitamin C, feeling a little better than I did when I woke up. Usually I will, when I go to a restaurant, I'll bring my digestive enzymes with me always, including, either Wheat Rescue or Allergyzyme from Designs for Health, both of which are gluten digesting enzymes. With my clients, I always tell them, hey, the idea here is not to go order a bagel or a stack of pancakes and take a gluten digesting enzyme, right? They're really only meant to break down minuscule amounts of cross contamination. So usually when I remember and to bring those with me and take those enzymes right before my first bite of food, I'm totally fine. And last night I had just forgotten to bring it with me, and still, ordered a gluten-free, dairy-free meal, and it was totally delicious. And but today I'm feeling a little under the weather, kind of brain foggy, kind of fatigued, a little bit of a headache. So next time those moments are always a reminder not to forget to bring my enzymes, because you can, even if you're ordering gluten-free meal at a restaurant, you can definitely still get cross-contamination easily when lots of stuff is flying around in the kitchen. The chef might use the same knife to slice through a loaf of bread as slicing through the avocado that you're eating or whatever it might be. So Word of the wise to remember to bring your enzymes, folks, if you're eating out and you are sensitive to gluten or dairy. It can really make a huge difference. You can kind of help your body, assist your body in breaking down those foods before your immune system acts on it. Then you can, greatly reduce or minimize the chance of any kind of food sensitivity reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Here's my little health tidbit for the week.
That's good. I'm sorry you have to go through it, and hate hearing that. But I'll take you running at half steam rather than not at all.
Oh,
you're still going to be blowing people away with your knowledge and expertise there, even though you're not totally feeling 100%. But we push through things sometimes. But yeah, you guys still got it's fun to go out to eat, right? So when you have the opportunity to, it is a fun process. But I've always got to keep things in mind too. I use some digestive support. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you're just so healthy." I'm like, well, I don't know if that's really the case. I think I've just found what my body needs to be healthy. But it takes effort and it takes focus and it takes some investment to be healthy with just my biochemistry. And I just always say I'm just thankful that I've figured out what my body needs. Through observation, through lab testing, I more or less know what I need to be as close to my best as possible. So that's what we have to do. So you're
that's right.
At the conference, I'll help remind you to bring out your enzymes. I'll be watching you.
And it's such a good point too. Once you kind of figure out your unique biochemistry, it's a pretty glorious thing because you can optimize your diet and lifestyle for your body's needs. And I would never go back to living the way I used to live, which was feeling, sick and tired and fatigued, 90% of the days out of the year. Whereas now it's very rare that I don't feel well. Maybe it's, it's an incident like this that happens where there's a mishap at a restaurant, or, maybe I'll get a little cold or something in the fall or winter, but usually, but even still, I'm able to recover from it much quicker. Sometimes I'll be able to kind of stop it in its tracks before it even becomes a full-blown issue, right? Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep, us too. We've got a few things that are kind of, first aid medicine cabinet we'll reach for when we start to feel something, and usually we can stop it. Yep. Yeah, for me, the few things will help, like Biocide and throat spray. As soon as I feel even like the slightest tickle in my throat, and I'll load up on some vitamin C. I'll make some fresh pressed ginger juice with fresh ginger root. Few little things like that, and I can usually stop it within a day or two at most. Yes. Where it used to be like 10 days lying in bed, feeling having a cold, which I just can't afford to be in to be down that long anymore. I just want to be out there helping people and feeling good. So that also means having to take care of myself, As they say, you cannot pour from an empty cup. True. That's extremely true words there. We've kind of had that balance here with just this year. Everything's busy and it's good. Business is really good and lots to do and people to help. But at the same time, you got to make sure you've got your self-care, your dress protocol dialed in. I want to feel good. I want to be at my very best for everybody that I'm working with. I think they deserve that. So that is a motivation for me also. So be at my best for my family, for clients, whoever come across. Now, hey, we'll have some cheat meals here and there, and we enjoy some of those. But just like I said, we've got some things that kind of minimize the damage and the effect that I might feel from those things, but it's not a regular thing. I feel like metabolic typing was one thing that really helped me set me free a little bit when I was eating out or going someplace where I didn't really control the food. Knowing my metabolic type and my macronutrients that make me feel the best, the balance there, it made every meal great. Like I knew that, hey, if there's limited foods there or limited things on the menu, I knew that, okay, if I focus on these type of foods and these macronutrient ratios, I'm probably going to feel pretty decent after this meal. I'm not tired. So you're right, it's that knowledge about yourself, what your body needs, that I think everybody should my clients, that's our goal, right, is to help them learn their own bodies and what their bodies need and be able to observe and figure that out. That's a gift. That's a huge gift we get to give people, helping them through that process of observation and learning and just getting trained to think that way. We do it, every day with multiple people as a practitioner, but your own body, you're living in that. You can't escape it. You've got to know to listen to it, make those connections there.
Yep.
Well, good. I'm glad you'll be out of this in no time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Usually only lasts about a day or so, and then I'm up and running again. So not too worried about it,
sure.
And nothing I can't just kind of power through.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. All right. Well, check in there, and we'll little blip on the radar here, a little bump, speed bump. We'll move over that. And again, thank you guys for tuning in to the call today. Number to call in 347-637-1378. And see a lot of you guys there listening live. Thanks for doing that, guys. Thanks for spending some time with us today. And we do want to do a couple announcements here. One is just a reminder about the FDN conference. So everything's still a go for an in-person, or if you prefer, for whatever reason, a virtual conference. So we have the live streaming option there as something you can do and choose from. So details there on the conference website. Unless something just dramatically changes, we've got plans to make it and attend in person and be with as many people as feel comfortable coming and listen to some amazing speakers and take in some of Southern California and maybe a couple of days in the desert. We're going to try to swing that and just enjoy some time away from, we haven't traveled that much this year, so just looking forward to getting away a little bit, and it's going to be tremendous. So tons of speakers, huge concentration of FDN practitioners. It's something that you need to go and do and be a part of. It'll make a huge difference in your business, in your excitement about what you're doing, and know that, hey, you're not the only one out there that takes enzymes with their meals for gluten and thinks about these things and focuses on helping people and just nerds out on the information and just wants to get better as a practitioner and find it fun. I had a medical director consult here this week with a practitioner and going through labs with her, and she's like, "This is just so much fun. I love this." She was learning kind of a new lab and seeing some of the connections between the lab she had already ran and then this new one, and then putting that together with some of the mental emotional things we saw in the case. It was just neat how it all unfolds. And she just stopped and said, "This is just so fun. I just love doing this work. It just doesn't feel like work. It's a blast." I said, "I agree. I'm getting to do that with you here today." So we have a good time. Love what we get to do. And we're going to get together for 3 or 4 days in October, 23rd to the 25th. There in San Diego. And you guys can go to ftnconference.com and check out details for the 2020 Functional Health Coaching Conference in San Diego again. So I hope to see you guys there. And I've also got some graduates. So there's not many weeks that go by we don't have at least a handful of graduates here. Some weeks more than others, but we want to always acknowledge those people that have made their way through the course, done all we've asked them to do, showed that they know how to do this work. The excitement's there, the passion's there, you're the right person, and then to be certified. And us to say, hey, go out there and do this work, enjoy helping people in a pretty amazing way. You never know exactly what's going to unfold when you start working with people, and it's tremendous. So quite an accomplishment to complete this course. It is not something you can do in a few weeks, so it takes a little time and effort, and that means you maybe push through some things in life that start to get in the way. When you're talking about something that takes that long, months to complete, inevitably life's going to get in the way. So I congratulate these folks for not only showing their ability for understanding the material, being able to do FDN, but also prioritizing life and putting the FDN course first and balancing everything to complete it on time and get out there and, again, do this awesome work. So we've got 3 people who want to say congratulations to, a couple from California, and then also closer to my neck of the woods here in St. Louis. So I've got Jenna Reed from Huntington Beach, California, and then Franz Schneidman from San Diego. You guys may know him. He's been around for quite a while, doing personal training there in San Diego and down in FDN where FDN started. And then Jess Gross, and she's again St. Louis, Missouri. So, guys, congratulations. Great job.
Congratulations, everybody. Very cool.
Yeah, cool stuff. It's great. It's great. It's neat to see people at different places along the way, right? So some people are starting out their journey. This is the first big step they've made into a career in health coaching or functional diagnostic nutrition. And other people like Franz there, he's been doing personal training, I think, since I was in high school, so quite a while, and then getting to add the lab testing aspect to what he's doing and make a shift in things. So I think it's really neat to see how you're going to integrate FDN into business model. It works well, so it's one thing you definitely can hang your hat on and know that it's going to work for you and you're going to have great results. Okay, well, Ryan, am I forgetting anything before we jump into questions?
I don't think you are. I think that's pretty good stuff.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have used about 45 minutes or so for questions on the call. So I've got some that have been written in. I've got some off of some Facebook pages there for you. So we'll jump into a few things here today. But again, if you guys want to do a live call, we'll prioritize live callers as always. 347-637-1378. If you're on right now, just hit 1 on your keypad, and I'll know you want to come on, and ask for your name after calling out your area code, and you can ask a question, make a comment, add to the conversation. If you've got some expertise or want to add to the answer, that's the way we do this, right? We're a group source. We're all a family of FDN practitioners, and we're all trying to help each other out. So it's hard to be a guru and know everything about everything. So that's why we have calls like this and have an awesome community that can help out. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, no hands raised right now. So let's. There's a couple here that I wanted to. Well, here's one actually. This might be pertinent here. I'll let you kind of start off with the answer here on this one, Ryan. I think it'd be kind of cool. I have a hand raised. Let me get this call, then 513. I'll get you next. So, what happens to your gut when you eat foods your body has a sensitivity to, and why does your body have sensitivity to foods to begin with?
And what was the first part of that question again? So why do we have food sensitivity to begin with? Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And what happens to your gut when you eat foods that your body has a sensitivity to? So how they start, and then when we do eat these foods, what type of things are we going to see?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
I'll give you the rest of the call to answer this one if you need it.
I was just gonna actually say, I was like, yeah, I could go on for an hour about that one. That's a big broad topic.
It is.
Yeah. So the reason that your body develops food sensitivities in the first place, yeah, that's a good question. So, a lot of times it comes down towards gut dysfunction, generally speaking. Because, what's going on there is if your body's not, breaking down your proteins in your food very well, then you can get undigested food proteins in the system that your immune system might tag or label as an antigen, especially if it's leaking through the gut barrier and leaking into the bloodstream. And it's coming through intact as an undigested food protein, then, that's when your immune system, is there to protect us, and it's going to see that undigested food protein as a foreign agent or, an antigen in the bloodstream. And so once the immune system has tagged that undigested food protein, your immune system's going to start mounting an inflammatory response. And that inflammatory response, which is normally there, to protect us, to help fight off an infection, to help, to mitigate the effects of injury, that sort of thing. Without inflammation, we would perish, we would die, right? But it's when inflammation has become excessive and gone awry, that we can end up with all kinds of symptoms. There's really no telling really what can happen is really going to depend on the individual and their unique, set of, the health of their microbiome, their genetics, and so on. So, your immune system starts mounting this inflammatory response to these undigested food proteins, and that can land you in a world of hurt. You can end up with fatigue, brain fog, headaches, neurological issues, really just about anything. And these food sensitivities too, not to get too off topic from the question, but this is something we've talked about before that's worth mentioning. They are delayed reactions, or they can be delayed reactions. So that's always something to keep in mind when we're talking about food sensitivities, because these reactions can be delayed and can take up to 72 hours to present themselves in terms of symptoms. Right? So you might eat a piece of mango today, and then 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later, you could end up with nausea or changes in bowel movement or fatigue or brain fog, right? So the symptom presentation isn't quite always so obvious as it is with a food allergy, whereas a food allergy is a much more immediate type of reaction, and can sometimes with food allergies can be more life-threatening and can present as anaphylaxis or your throat closing up, or an immediate reaction of having hives, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what can happen with food sensitivities. It's basically an immune reaction that's causing an inflammatory response. And so I guess my answer there to why they happen in the first place, it often comes down to a disrupted gut environment. It's kind of a top-down disruption. If you've got a lot of infections in your gut in terms of, say, an excess of bacterial overgrowth, parasites, H. pylori, yeast and candida overgrowth, all that stuff. Sometimes you'll even see a client who's got all of that going on, right? Got kind of a full house, right? And that in itself can drive inflammation in the gut, can drive and lead to leaky gut and intestinal permeability, could lead towards an excess of endotoxins in your gut environment, right? Bacteria, they shedding their cell membranes and releasing endotoxins, like LPS, one that we commonly talk about, right? So that can all lead to a bunch of downstream issues too, like malabsorption and poor assimilation of nutrients. Can lead towards low levels of pancreatic enzymes, where you're not therefore breaking down your food and assimilating it as optimally as you could be. And then if you're not breaking down your food, again, kind of going back to my earlier comment there, you're going to end up with undigested food proteins. And, when we say the word protein, we typically think only of, fish or meat or chicken, but proteins are in all foods, so they're in potatoes, they're in avocados, they're in apples and onions. And if those proteins don't get broken down fully, they can cross the mucosal barrier intact. And again, when they're not fully broken down, your immune system can react to them. So that's one mechanism I can think of. Another that can happen is if you have these food proteins leaking through the gut lining and into the body systemically, like they're now located across the mucosal barrier, and now once they're in the bloodstream, they can travel anywhere. So another thing that can happen is this mechanism called molecular mimicry, where the immune system may actually get confused between what that food protein looks like and tissue in your own body. So, imagine there's an amino acid protein sequence in an undigested peptide of gluten, and let's say that has a certain fingerprint or signature, right? And that signature would look like AABCD, right? Like a certain amino acid sequence. Then you might have some tissue in your body, in your own body, like in your thyroid gland, for example, and the protein in the thyroid gland might have a very similar or nearly identical protein sequence that looks like A, A, B, C, D. Again, think of it like a signature or a fingerprint, right? And so in that case, the body might lose its ability, the immune system can lose its ability to distinguish between the gluten protein and the thyroid tissue, and it starts attacking both of them. Kind of a case of mistaken identity. Sometimes you even hear this term like friendly fire, right, with the immune system, right? It's going after the wrong thing, right? It's killing civilians, right? In sort of in an attempt to protect you, right? But it's kind of inflammation gone awry, and so that can happen with food sensitivities as well, where if these issues go on long enough and become chronic, your immune system can start attacking your body's own tissue, and that is believed to be one of the main ways that various different autoimmune conditions emerge or develop. Anything else to add to that, Brandon?
No, that's good. That's excellent. A lot of the chemistry there and the biology aspect of that. So, why they develop? I think it's just FDN. I think the body generally, for most situations, everything's multifactorial, I would say. So, why are things developing in the first place? There's multiple reasons. Reasons why. You looked at a big long list of things that are why. You probably have 5 or 10 of those there present, coming together to make it where you have a sensitivity to that food. So I think rarely is it just like one single event or one single cause, multiple reasons there. And that's why with FDN, the way we work is that we always work multifactorially. We hit this thing from multiple angles. So while, hey, it's good to do a test, it's probably great for most people to go, gluten-free and dairy-free for a while. They're probably going to feel better doing that. Most people probably would. They have, any kind of digestive issues to begin with. Doing a food sensitivity test and actually testing precisely which foods are issues, which ones are not, that's an even greater step. But you've got to go even beyond that to really get true, lasting, maximized results. And that is addressing it from, again, all these different angles. Not only gut testing, stool testing, working on the gut, balancing microbial balance, and working on pathogens and supporting the tissue and knocking down inflammation and things like that we do, helping with detoxification. But it's the whole of it all, right? So if you are not getting enough sleep, if you've got a lot of mental, emotional stress, if you're not, moving your body, whatever exercise level is appropriate for you, those are factors right there that were part of the whole reason your gut has an issue to begin with. There's a lack of gut health. So it's multiple areas that you really want to focus on. So, which is kind of odd because we think we're trained so much to think, well, this area is in isolation from everything else. How could my sleep levels really be affecting my gut? That's just my brain, right? I'm irritable and I can't really focus. No, there's an effect on the gut and how that functions. So to be truly healthy, it does take a multi-pronged approach. And that's what FDN is, a multi-pronged approach. And that's why it works so well. It's a general approach. It's not just a only gut-focused approach. You've got all of these different areas. So the practical side of this is you have to address everything to get where you want to get to keep those things down. And invariably it works. It's amazing the changes. I've just ran MRTs only on people before, and within 3 weeks they've lost 20 pounds, and their bloating's totally gone. They have a ton more energy. Wow, awesome. But what happens when they have to work that food back in, or where do we take it from here? Well, let's get that gut as healthy as possible, and then we can move to the next phase there. Cool. Well, good question. That was on the Trainee Facebook page there. Good question there, and it's a fundamental. Really, that's you should be able to answer that at least on a basic level there, because that's one of the big points you want to make sure you communicate to your clients. They need to understand the power of the gut and the effect on health that it has. Is it the only thing that affects health? No, but it's a really big part of that. And we're really good as FDN practitioners at supporting that area of the body. So getting that across to them to know that, hey, we're going to spend some time and some effort and some money and some thought to support this part of the body because it is so critical, and it could be the cause of some symptoms that you don't even think are even related at all, like Ryan said, their thyroid autoimmunity. Who would have really thought there's a connection between the gut and the thyroid? And there very much is. So when you get to tell your client that, I love those moments when you get to just totally, it's a light bulb moment for them. You kind of blow them away in a good way a little bit, that there's these connections. This is possibly the cause of what they're dealing with. It's an amazing moment. I love getting to lay those truths down and explain to them really what's going on in the body. It's one of the highlights of a call there. So being able to answer this question is really key to the jumping off point for a lot of other things you're going to talk and teach your clients about. So good answer, Ryan. Thanks for all that. That's great.
Yeah, sure.
I think you did in about 15 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And you gave us that good zoomed out perspective too, which is so important. You don't always need to terms with your clients like intestinal permeability or molecular mimicry, right? But you can explain to them that in a dysregulated gut environment, our immune system can develop food sensitivities. If our immune system becomes imbalanced because of poor diet and lifestyle and lack of sleep, we can develop food sensitivities. There may just be certain genetic factors where we're taking into account bioindividuality. Could just be there's certain populations are and that gets a bit into the world of metabolic typing. It could be that based on your certain ancestral line or genetic composition, that your body type or metabolic type just wasn't really designed. Your body wasn't designed very well to consume a certain type of food, right? And so your immune system is going to, in that case, treat it as an inflammatory food if you weren't really meant to be eating it, right? So there's just kind of a bio-individualistic aspect to it too. So these things are really complex, and that's how I would often, explain it to a client that the immune system is incredibly complex. So there's rarely just one answer as to why food sensitivities developed. If you wanted to, spend an entire, weekend or longer on PubMed, you can research, all the reasons behind food sensitivities, and it would keep you busy for a long, long time.
It would, and we're still learning things. So that's the wild thing. We're still getting more understanding about this, and I'm glad of it. But you don't have to know, like Ryan said, know everything, all the science. It's also the practical, clinical application of things too. Cool.
Exactly right.
So.
Yeah, and just one final thought there too on that note is for the most part we don't always need to know the why, especially when we're feeling terrible and if our clients are feeling pretty crappy, they just it's not always going to benefit them to know all of the immunology and the biochemistry. We just want them to get them feeling better, right? So
Yep.
It's kind of like the difference between taking your car to a mechanic. When you take your car in, you just expect that they're going to diagnose the issue and then fix the problem. But we don't necessarily need to know all of the laws of thermodynamics and physics behind, all the mechanics and everything that goes into it. We just, we're just like looking to get in there and kind of fix the problem. Right. So. Yep. You'll have those clients occasionally that they want to know everything, right? And but the problem with that is you can get stuck in paralysis by analysis, right? And you need to remind them that occasionally too. That is understanding this actually going to help you feel better and move you in the right direction, right?
Yep.
Sometimes you kind of have to redirect the narrative a little bit or do a reframe for a client and remind them that, hey, it's fantastic that you are so interested in knowing all these mechanisms and having this knowledge. In some cases, I'll even say you should be an FDN. When the client really takes interest in learning about the topic. But at the same time, we have to balance that with what's actually going to get them better from a practical perspective.
Yep. Very good. All right. Well, hey, we'll get a hand raised here. I've got a a couple of them now here, so it's awesome. So let me get 513 area code. Been holding for a little bit there. All right, 513. What's your name, 513?
Cheryl.
Hello, Cheryl. How are you?
Hey, Cheryl.
I'm fine, thank you. So I'm a trainee. I've been listening to your show for quite a while and enjoying it. This is my first time calling in. So I have a question on the hormone test, and just wondering what your thinking would be if you have somebody coming back with melatonin levels of 5 when the range is 20 to 50 on the test, and they're allergic to supplemental melatonin. What would you be? I guess what would you be thinking?
Gotcha. Well, Cheryl, thanks for calling in. Glad that you're in the course and getting into this stuff. It's an exciting time for you. So I have to take myself back about 10 years to where I was in your position, and it's super fun. So, well, I'll take a first stab at this here. So with melatonin, we would say in this case it's going to be a low level of melatonin. And I do think about, supplemental melatonin, especially if a person's not sleeping well, as a potential choice for intelligent allopathy, maybe to help them feel a little bit better, get the ball moving forward, maybe get that circadian rhythm a little bit more in alignment. There's benefits and reasons for taking melatonin. But when I see low melatonin, my knee-jerk reaction really is, why is melatonin so low? Usually what's going on in either their night cycle, their bedtime routine, and especially in their gut, because most of your melatonin there is synthesized in your gut. So if melatonin is low, you may see sleep issues with that person. Not always, but you may see sleep issues. But you know almost invariably that you have some gut malfunction. So practically, if a person can't take, for whatever reason, like I said, a reaction here, or just some people just don't feel good on melatonin. It just doesn't jive with their body. They have odd reactions or opposite reactions or feel really wild with it. That's okay. So what you can do, the big focus there is really going to be focusing on the health of their gut. So working on diet and then everything after that. So once the food goes in, where does it go? Gut health is going to be a big part of that. That's the biggest thing I would focus on. If they do have trouble sleeping, there's many things you can do to help them with intelligent allopathy for the sleep side. There's different herbs and things like GABA and L-theanine that you can use to help sleep. Or I would say, and Ryan, maybe you can back me up on this here, would it be something where maybe some L-tryptophan or 5-HTP, which is one of your precursors to serotonin and melatonin, that might be helpful as a possible sleep support or even gut support there. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty comprehensive answer. That's pretty much exactly how I would have answered it. I'm always thinking about what the hormones are telling us, not necessarily what we can supplement but what is that value being high or low telling us about the person. And with low melatonin, I'm always thinking about gut health, and more often than not, 9 times out of 10, that's going to correlate with some gut dysfunction on the GI map or even on an OAT test, depending on what you're looking at there. But pretty much par for the course to see low melatonin and see things like parasites and candida and H. pylori and all those good gut bugs there that we're so used to seeing. So if someone is sensitive to melatonin and is not responding to it well, you could just even leave it alone and just work on sleep hygiene stuff, like getting blackout curtains in the room, having a sort of a wind down routine before bed, turning the lights off, doing some meditation or gratitude journaling, and then just work on gut health and let the melatonin sort itself out. But if none of that's working, of course, what you mentioned, Brandon, was spot on. So L-theanine, GABA, magnesium, I think can be really, really helpful. It's the calming mineral, right? So many people are deficient in magnesium. It's pretty widespread deficiency.
It is.
Potentially even CBD. I know that's becoming more popular. You just have to do your research there. Can really help calm down the nervous system and help with as a sleep aid. with the caveat that it's kind of a wild west out there. There's a lot of junk. And so, a lot of CBD products, in my experience, may not do much if you're not getting something that's very high quality and has, some good research behind it. And then what else? Yeah, you had mentioned tryptophan or 5-HTP as precursors. So, the pathway there is that tryptophan is the initial building block or amino acid, and then that gets converted into 5-HTP. And then 5-HTP is the precursor for serotonin, and then serotonin goes on to make melatonin. So that can actually be very, very helpful just to memorize that and have that in your mind, or even write it down. When I first started out as an FDN, I would write these things down, keep notes on my computer until I had them in my brain memorized. And a reason that can be helpful is because if you see someone with low melatonin, knowing that kind of pathway chart in your mind, chances are that they're probably deficient in serotonin too, right? That'll often go hand in hand. And if someone's deficient in serotonin, they may present with symptoms of depression, might present with carb cravings, and then potentially sleep issues. So you can see all three of those together in someone that's deficient in serotonin and or melatonin, in which case, again, just kind of reemphasizing your point there, Brandon, that 5-HTP might be a game changer for someone that has all of those symptoms of, carb cravings, sleep issues, and what am I missing? Depression, right? Yeah. So I think that's about it.
Yeah. Is that helpful, Cheryl? Have you got a follow-up?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
okay.
Cheryl.
Awesome.
Cool.
Keep up the good work. We'll talk soon, hopefully.
Right.
Awesome. All right. Well, another caller here. I've got 925 area code. So 925, what's your name?
Hi, Brandon. It's Ariel.
Hey, Ariel. Good to hear from you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. So recently certified as an SDN a couple of weeks ago, as you know, took me through my last final.
Yes. Yes.
And I have a question on the MRT and also on logistics with requesting labs in different countries. So first question on the MRT, how often will you see when someone has gone through the LEAP protocol, eliminating dairy, grains, sugar, alcohol, in addition to their inflammatory foods for 3 to 6 months, how often will you see that the actual food sensitivities will change on if they do a challenge or if they do a food sensitivities retest? And do you recommend that they do a food sensitivities retest? And again, like how often are things changing, and how often are things just kind of like, even though they've removed those foods, are they still just going to be reactive always at the same level? That's the first question. And then the second, just kind of more high level, is there a resource we can use to understand which countries, like Costa Rica or Italy or things like that, which tests we can use for clients in which countries?
Gotcha. Good questions. And yeah, again, good to hear from you here. So, all right, well, the MRT one there, I would say this. So, generally, I think maybe even just doing the MRT, pulling out those foods, letting the body sort of just, that's the only thing that you did, kind of like we were talking about earlier. If that's the only thing that you did, I definitely think you would have improved oral tolerance, meaning I would say a good portion of those foods that were issues before will not be issues again. And so generally you're going to see, if you retest, you're going to see a change in foods. There will be some changes for sure. Generally, if we do our job completely with the full gut protocol, all of FDN, you're going to see the number of foods go down. So almost invariably, every retest I've ever done, which I don't always do a retest. Ryan might have a different approach here, but I don't always do a retest. But any retest I have done, there are some shifts. I would say probably 40%, something like that, of those foods will be some new foods that were not issues before. And then most of the time you're going to see, I would say, about a maybe a 50% reduction in the number of foods, just pure number of foods that the person is reactive to. That's kind of statistics I've noticed over time. So I think we're always going to have some foods that we're going to have some reaction level to. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but I think that as far as what's practical and what you can actually feel and what affects your life, whatever's on the lab versus what's actually affecting you in real life can be different. So you may have 10 foods that are still issues for you, and maybe you're eating those foods and don't even know, but those 10 foods may not be enough strain on your body really to affect your life at all. We can't always chase lab results necessarily, so I'd say we got to watch out for that too, trying to get a perfect food sensitivity test. I don't know that there ever is going to be a perfect one, but we're hitting this from multiple angles, so it's not just relying only upon the food testing side of things. So how quick to change that aspect of it? I think the 3-month time there is a pretty good one. That's what we teach in the course. That's what Oxford would say, at least 3 months. I think longer might be beneficial, but I don't have many folks that if we're doing the whole of FDN, that by doing all that, pulling those foods out, they have to go like an extended period of time. It's usually 3 months, 4 months. By the time I actually work some foods back in, kind of do a systematic reintroduction, it's maybe 4 or 5 months when we're probably doing that. And generally everything's doing great for their bodies, and then we give it a shot. We try each food one at a time, and we see what we feel. That is more of a clinical approach there to it. You can get much more scientific and do retesting with that. Mm-hmm. Brian, what do you think? How do you do things? Do you do a reintroduction and just listen for signs, or do you always do a retest?
More the former. Yeah, I rarely do retesting for food sensitivity tests. I'm usually looking to see if the client's showing signs of improvement, right? Keeping track of their symptoms, even using the adrenal stress indicators form as kind of a metabolic chaos scorecard or a symptom scorecard. Usually, you're gonna see significant improvement if your client is compliant with the DRESS protocol and they're working through their hormonal imbalances, their gut dysfunction, they're working on liver health and detoxification, and be working on that kind of systemic approach. You'll usually see some decent improvement within 3 to 6 months in working with somebody. In which case, you don't necessarily always need to do a ton of retesting. If anything, I'll often redo a GI map. If someone had a parasite or something, that was inhibiting their gut function, I'm wanting to see concrete evidence that it's been eradicated. And, the gut can be a bit more complex in that sense too, because we can often see a new set of bugs showing up on a GI map, and we'll have to kind of work in layers, right? So it's not uncommon at all to have to work through 2 or even 3 rounds of a GI map to really clean things up, especially if certain bugs or critters are hiding out in biofilms, right? Something might not have shown up on the first test. But with food sensitivities, getting back to that, I'll rarely do a retest. I really think that the reintroductions are the gold standard for whether someone's actually truly sensitive. And if you've eliminated the foods on the MRT for 90 days, and they've been compliant with that, then the thing to do there is to just have them systematically reintroduce one of those foods at a time, being careful not to reintroduce more than one food at a time, right? Because then if you have a reaction, you'd have no idea which one it is. So I'm definitely a big fan of that kind of reintroduction approach, and it also potentially eliminates the need to have to retest again, especially if the client, subjectively speaking, is already feeling better, then I don't necessarily see a need to retest. And this actually can tie into my earlier point about the first question there, why food sensitivities happen to begin with, and what kind of symptoms they can present with. And I often look at food sensitivity tests in a way as kind of a leaky gut test, right? So it's definitely more to it than that. Like we've talked about today, how the immune system is very complex. But when someone's presenting with, more than 15 or 20, sometimes they'll see 40 or more, food sensitivities show up on one test, like an MRT or a Zoomer type test, for looking at food sensitivities. There's definitely different food sensitivity tests out there. And when I see a ton of food sensitivity showing up, that's often a sign of leaky gut or a screwed up gut, or some kind of immune balance going on that needs to be worked on, right? So sometimes it can go beyond just eliminating the foods that are showing up on a list. You might also have to kind of restore immune tolerance, and while also working on healing the gut and working on the gut environment. So, of course, it goes back to that comprehensive approach. So that was my long-winded answer, but in a nutshell, I'm more of a fan of reintroductions rather than retesting for food sensitivities.
And if I can just interject really quickly, when a lot of these symptoms are subclinical, that's my only thing, is that when you're going to reintroduce these foods, if the symptoms that the client was having, like just generally, I don't know, like fatigue or something that you can't really point to as like, oh, I definitely got bloated when I ate that food, or oh, I got a headache when I ate that food. It's just a general like feeling of malaise or like fatigue or exhaustion, or I don't know. It's just so hard to point to one specific food rather than just retesting and knowing, and so I understand the concept of doing the food challenge and that being the gold standard more so than retesting, but I'm just stumped as to what to do when symptoms are subclinical.
Yeah. Well, so that's where I would say it can be helpful to zoom out and keep the big picture in mind, right? So if you're looking at a symptom like fatigue, which clients of ours have we ever worked with that didn't have fatigue, right? I mean, it seems to be probably on the top 5 list of symptoms that our clients will come to us with. And if we get too narrowly focused on one aspect of the testing side of things or the dress protocol, we could lose sight of the big picture. So it can be really hard to pinpoint, one specific food, like let's say it's tomato, for example, as being the linchpin. That's the one thing that's throwing off the person's entire physiology and making them fatigued. If I were to think that way, that would be probably missing out on the bigger picture in terms of what else could be showing up in terms of hormone imbalances, gut dysfunction, working on liver health and detoxification. Are there toxins in the system, right? So things like if you get into the world of HTMA, it's an affordable way to look at the level of mercury or aluminum or other toxic elements in the system, and you can surely bet that those heavy metals can cause a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction and fatigue, and can also lead towards gut dysbiosis. And it's everything's interconnected, right? So I say all that not to find a way to get out of giving you a specific answer to your question with food reintroductions, but we also want to remember the big picture, and that food sensitivities are just kind of one lever in the machinery of the body. It's one, as Reed would call it, it's one homeostatic control, right? And so we want to always be making sure that we're looking at all those other potential factors and variables, and of course how the dress protocol at large can do so much of the heavy lifting for helping someone overcome something like fatigue, right? Like Brandon mentioned earlier in the call, if we're not getting enough sleep, that can that can cause immune dysregulation and make us more sensitive to foods. I'm sure, you've experienced this probably yourself. If you're not getting a good night's sleep, then your symptoms are more likely to flare up, right? And that might cause a certain amount of immune dysregulation that might make you more sensitive to foods. So we don't want to underestimate the power of some of those fundamentals too. What do you think, Brandon? Am I missing anything there?
Well, I might just kind of say that there's nothing wrong with doing a retest on the food test. I mean, you could do that with every single client, and it would be fine. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could do the challenge test either way. I think you want to find the way that you feel like you're doing what you think you should do for the client, and ultimately yields the best results for that person. So it's going to be case by case, or just, hey, across the board, here's how I work, here's how I want to do this, because it makes me know that, hey, I've done my job, or there's nothing else that's hidden here, and it gives that person a little more direction moving forward in their maintenance protocol, because, we're not going to work with people generally for years and years and years. We're going to do the function restoration, and we're going to teach them about their bodies, and then they're going to move on and live a good, healthy life. So if you feel like a retest on a food test gives them their moving forward the next 3 months or 4 months of a protocol for their diet, that's fine to do. So I think it's just a practitioner call there. I don't think it's really wrong either way. So I think it comes down to a balance between what we might say in theory or testing-wise versus what is done in real life. There's a balance to strike there, and I think it's a personal choice by each practitioner. I'm okay with generally what I've seen people do in years of doing this, that if we do the whole of FTN and we don't have to, and they're feeling really good and working the foods back in, they don't have any problems with those generally, they're doing well, then I think that works just fine. But again, if it feels better to you to retest and get something on paper there, you can do that. I think kind of you get to choose here as far as what you want to do as far as your business goes. I think ultimately, because we're doing fine by the client either way.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Brandon. I mean, it ultimately comes back to your clinical instincts and what you think the client needs. You'll find even that you might need to run different tests for different clients. You might have a certain set of core tests, but you might suspect a client is dealing with SIBO, in which case you'd want to run a SIBO breath test on that client. But you might not do that on everybody who's not throwing off the red flags of those kinds of symptoms that would present that way. So, the only thing I might be concerned with running multiple food sensitivities is that, you could, I guess, that it's really going to be a matter of kind of working through that until you see symptoms resolve with your client. Of course, you're probably not going to do that, forever. But the only thing I would kind of caution against is that you might see a totally different different set of results every single time, because food sensitivities can change. And so it could become sort of a moving goalpost. And that's just something to be aware of, right? Not to say that it's not going to be productive, but that, those food sensitivities can change over time. And it could potentially become a rabbit hole if you're not also working through some of those other areas of health that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of alluding to that before. You put it a better way than I did there. So, yeah, you don't want to get in that mentality of just like you're always chasing the lab results when, like, I haven't ran an MRT in a few years. Am I eating some foods probably on a regular basis that are causing some effect on my body that's negative? Probably so. I mean, we live in this crazy world, so
exactly.
It probably is the case there. But ultimately, the net effect on my life and how I feel in my health, does it seem like it's a big thing? No. Now, hey, 6 months from now, if I just take feel worse and things are not good, well, I'm just going to do FDN and look through evaluate my dress inventory, and then maybe run some labs. So we have that option. So you always could do that. So each case is going to be a little bit different. All right, about a minute left on the call. I want to quickly answer the question there. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add just one quick statement to that I would wonder if there's ever actually an instance where someone would have no food sensitivities at all showing up on an MRT or other food sensitivity tests. You might not ever get to that point, right? So sometimes it's an issue of kind of managing the total load of inflammation. Almost, if you think of it in that sense, right? You have like a bucket, right, of inflammation, and that bucket can fill up with food sensitivities. It can fill up with toxins and pesticides and heavy metals. It can fill up with gut infections. And I really think, in a sense, if you think of it that way, we're really just trying to lower the bucket of inflammation overall in the body.
Exactly. I use that analogy almost every single time with clients, telling them the process, how this works. I think that's a good one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, I think time's up, but I think I can answer the question about labs in different countries. So first place I would check there, Ariel, is to the medical director program page. So a lot of times we have those things listed on each individual lab. You can also reach out to the medical director program there and ask, a particular country. Maybe we can tell you that. Likely we can. And another area to do is on the AFDMP page. So we have practitioners all over the world working in different places. You might have some information there. What is the best options there as far as international? So countries change, customs regulations change, and then with COVID, things can be a little bit interesting and different. So proceed with caution, but just do the best you can to do the legwork to make it as easy as you can for your client. But again, medical director program and AFTMP Facebook page would be great. So, all right. Well, good stuff. All right. Well, Cheryl, Ariel, thanks for the calls there. Good questions. Hopefully we helped out today. And then our graduates there, Jenna, Franz, and Jess, good job. And Ryan, thanks for your awesome answers. And, hey, running at half steam, I think you did good. You're now we're kind of a little more evenly matched.
I'm mostly faking it today.
All right. You take the rest of the day off, okay?
I wish I could, but I've got too many people to help. I've got to.
Gotcha.
Duty calls.
All right. Well, thanks for being on with me, and guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.